Hey everyone, 10 Outdoors 9. In this video, I plan to give you more information, more data points than any single video or review I have posted up to this point. 9mm ammo test, 4 of them in this video, all standard pressure. And you might be sitting there thinking, you know, plus P or plus P plus is the way to go for self-defense in 9mm. Give the video a few minutes. You might see something that will change your mind. All chronograph velocities in the test shot are with the Glock 19 4-inch barrel. Velocities are confirmed at 10 feet with a Pro Chrono digital chronograph. You'll get to see day and also nighttime shots for each cartridge. The test block is a diluted form of sim test, calibrated to be comparable with 10% ordnance gel. First test is with the 124 grain Spear Gold Dot. Its plus P sibling has been adopted by countless law enforcement agencies. Advertised velocity is 1,150 feet per second, 70 feet per second slower than the plus P version. Here are the 5 measured shots, and you can see most are above the advertised velocity. And the average is 1,155 feet per second, 367 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Next up are the day and night shots for a brief glimpse of recoil and muzzle flash, followed by the block shot. Now the plus P. The expansion begins about 1 inch in. Noticing some good ripping of the media in this section, and this is a pretty good view inside this cavity. The largest segment is nearly 6 inches in length, 3/4 of an inch wide. Cavitation is pretty good for this weight and velocity. The bullet stabilizes to some degree as we move toward the stopping point. From this perspective, there is good expansion, and it carried a small plug of denim. Total penetration is 13 3/4 inches. Maximum diameter of the expanded petals is 0.665 inches, with the average at 0.615 inches. Retained weight is holding steady at 123.9 grains. Obviously, the diameter would have been somewhat lower without this flag out to one side, but probably still in the ballpark of 0.6 of an inch. The Gold Dot has always been a favorite of mine, and I have carried the plus P version of this for a number of years. I found the standard pressure version availability to be just as good as the plus P option. Recoil is slightly less than plus P, and penetration is excellent. More on that later in the video. Next up is the 124 grain Federal HST. As of this video production date, I'm finding this readily available in 20 round boxes. The plus P version was tested in September 2012. Advertised velocity is 1,150 feet per second, 50 feet per second slower than the plus P version. Here are the 5 measured shots. The average is 1,141 feet per second, within 1% of the advertised. Here is the largest segment of the permanent cavity. I've peeled away a layer of sim test to better illustrate the cavitation. This segment runs for nearly 6 inches and is 1 inch at its widest point. Once the bullet settles into a more narrow path, we get into double digits in penetration, with the stopping point coming in at 14 inches. The high end on expanded diameter is 0.592 inches, with an average just under that at 0.588 inches. Retained weight is 123.8 grains. Regardless of caliber, the HST is simply consistent with uniform expansion. These bullets are not bonded, but you don't see any jacket separation. ATK Speer is fortunate to have both the HST and Gold Dot in their catalog. I personally feel that the HST might give an edge over the Gold Dot due to a wider expansion profile. I noted earlier, and I'll add that at this time the standard pressure version seems to be more prevalent than Plus P. I feel that either is a good choice. Halftime of this series of ammo tests. Let's give you a little bit of a break between the monotony of watching these things, but don't put your notes away. Could be a little bit of data over the next minute or two. And I started testing ammo back in 2009 on YouTube, and it wasn't until 2011 that I incorporated a block into the format where I could get better consistency. So I'm really interested in the penetration and expansion of all this stuff, and I could better do it with some type of block. So we incorporated that, and I'm going to focus now on 24 9mm tests that go back to 2011 when I started using that block. Now those 24 tests, that was a mix of standard pressure and Plus P. 17 of those 24 tests were standard pressure, so the greatest majority. Now why do you think that was the case? Number one, I'm getting a lot more requests for standard pressure ammo. Number two, that seems to be more available than Plus P, a greater variety, especially in 124 and 147 grain for self-defense. And I was talking to folks behind the gun counters, they're saying that's what people want to buy. So that's important, and obviously the manufacturers are responding to that. But I think what's also driving this is the T word, technology. Ammo performance across the board. You look at the service calibers, and I'll include 38, 9mm, 357 SIG, 40 and 45. In my testing with a consistent format, I'm not really seeing that much difference in penetration. Now expansion is going to vary based on diameter and bullet weight and so forth, but not a whole lot. But penetration to vitals, which is what you're looking for in a self-defense situation, not that much difference. So when you break down 9mm standard pressure and Plus P, the variances are going to be even less. But is there an advantage one over the other? In those 24 tests I just referenced, penetration consistently deeper by anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch with the standard pressure loads. Are you surprised by that? Now, on the other hand, expansion was typically a little bit greater diameter, but not by much, with the Plus P loads. Now you break 9mm down into 127 and 147, 124 rather, and 147. The preferences I have for weights in 9mm, and again, it's close, but it's which way does it go? I mean, you have a little bit higher pressure, you might get more muzzle flash. Some people will say you have more wear and tear on your handgun with Plus P ammo. Some folks now with a lot of the smaller handguns, say with 3.5 inch barrels and so forth, they don't want that additional recoil, so they might go with standard pressure. So the point of this is, technology, I believe, has really improved the ammo to the point there isn't much of a difference, and that may be why we're seeing more standard pressure ammo on the market, it seems, than Plus P. Stick around, two more tests. We'll begin the second half with the Hornady Critical Duty 135 grain. The Plus P version was tested in March 2012. Advertised muzzle velocity is 1,015 feet per second. Therefore, I was pleased that my 5 shots came in higher. The average is 1,045 feet per second. I chronographed several loads on this particular day, so I'm sticking with these numbers. Viewing the initial cavitation, and while it doesn't appear to be as impressive as the previous two tests, it is 5.5 inches in length and approximately 3/4 of an inch wide. I had to exercise extreme caution in recovering this one since it was the third shot in the block. Following the channel out to the stopping point, we have excellent penetration of 14.5 inches. High end of the expanded diameter is .558 inches. This is the middle ground, and the average is 0.554 inches. Retained weight without the plug is 134.3 grains. Hornady promotes a controlled expansion parameter of 1.5 times the original diameter. We're not much over that with this example, which by the way is a bonded bullet. I know that a lot of people don't care for the plug in the hollow point cavity, and while I would prefer a small piece of polymer to not be the leading edge of a launched projectile, this bullet and the critical defense, for that matter, have always performed well in these tests. If it came down to only critical defense or critical duty for my carry ammo, it is easily the latter. Let's wrap it up with the Hornady XTP 147 grain. This cartridge typically isn't anywhere near the top of conversations regarding 9mm carry ammo, but I think it has some good merits. Advertised velocity is 975 feet per second, on the lower end of commercially produced 147 grain ammo. The 5 shots were quite consistent. The average isn't off by much, 972 feet per second. As you would expect, it is a mild recoiling load, which leads to faster follow-up shots. Expansion appears to begin at the 1-inch mark, and the largest segment of this permanent cavity is nearly 1 inch wide and 7.5 inches in length. This could be the best overall cavitation of the 4 loads in this video. Heavier loads tend to penetrate deeper, so how are we doing? All the way out to 15.5 inches, the deepest penetration of the 4 tested here. In spite of the lower velocity, there appears to be some good expansion. The high side of expansion is 0.586 inches, and the average is 0.561 inches. Retained weight is a perfect 147 grains. This is another of Hornady's bullets that aren't designed for huge expansion, yet it is 60% above the beginning diameter, and it held together extremely well. The XTP is well known as a hunting bullet in larger calibers, such as the 10mm, 44 Magnum, 500 Smith & Wesson, etc. The hunting moniker could be why it generally isn't in the discussion of top-tier 9mm self-defense loads. However, I think the 147 grain XTP delivers consistent velocity, low recoil, deep penetration, and reliable expansion. What more could you ask for in a self-defense load?